Today we finished the painting of Misty from Neko Galaxy. I'll put the link below of the skin painting video. The painting of the skin was via my old sketch and glaze technique. Today's video will show the painting of the rest of the miniature with the teardrop sponge. The video yesterday, which is the black and white underpainting with the sponge, was actually done after the painting of this miniature. So this video shows my very first time of using this sponge. I'll also show the rest of the miniature that I painted with a normal brush, my Foxbite Kolinsky brushes, so that you know the colors I used on the rest of the miniature. Also, I'll show the weathering, the painting of the weathering of the signage at the back of the miniature using Army Painter paints. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my studio. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to the Army Painter for making this video possible. Oh, don't forget my affiliate links and discount codes down below. In my last video, I shared some tips and recommendations on how to use the teardrop sponge. But in this video, since this was my first time to use this kind of sponge, I'll share like a couple of mistakes at the end of this video. I started with a simple black and white underpainting with the sponge, since I don't know what to expect with the textures coming from the sponge. I started with Ironclad Gray, which is a very dark, not very, but a dark gray color from the John Blanche collection. It's a good gauge to see how it transitions from the black primer. I apply the colors in multiple layers as usual, and of course, I thin the paints a little bit. I also made sure, I used the hair dryer to force dry the previous layers before applying another pass of the same color. Building up the colors with the sponge is so much faster than building up gray tones or colors over black primer with the dry brush. I am immediately happy with the buildup of the textures and the colors using this sponge. Don't get me wrong, I love my Foxbite and Army Painter dry brushes, but using this sponge is so much faster, and I really like the finish or the render of the textures. Now let's add some colors. In hindsight, I should have used speed paint so that I could have called this video Sponge Chop. But still, I enjoyed building up the colors with Warpaint's Fanatics. Longtime subscribers know that I love textures. I love producing textures as I do layering. And layering using the sponge is super stupid, stupidly super easy. This sponge is the greatest invention man ever made. I do not exaggerate my reactions here at my YouTube channel since it's no longer 2010, but this is crazy good. I'm sure you've seen my older videos, like I have stippling with a normal brush, glaze stippling, or even stippling with the dry brush, with the dome-shaped dry brush. But this one looks way better. It's like high-level painting with a stupid sponge. And I think you could hear that the roosters agree. Now, using the sponge, you don't really need to use a lot of colors to build up or create good transitions in between the colors. You could thin down the paints and blend it as it dries. You have a window of a few seconds, and then you don't need to use a lot of paints. It's almost like using the airbrush in that sense that you don't need a lot of colors to create good blending. But of course, unlike the airbrush wherein you create very smooth transitions, with this one, you create some subtle textures. Now you see in the video that I painted the base color with a brush because I simply don't want to mask the other areas of the miniature. After painting the base color though, we go back to layering with the sponge. Similar to painting with the dry brush, using the sponge is so low focus, it's very relaxing, satisfying even, and it produces a better finish than painting with the dry brush. Oh, forget about the damped dry brush technique. It's like, for me, to be honest, it's overcomplicating something that is fairly very basic. It's called dry brush for a reason. Well, you could call the damp dry brush technique damp brush. My point is, using the sponge is much easier. Also, it produces a better finish. Like I said in the intro, it was my first time to use the sponge for painting a miniature. And I made like not a really big mistake, but I made a mistake. I did not thin the paints enough. So since I did not thin the paints enough, I created a subtle like a 400 or 600 grit sandy texture on the signage. It still looks good in person, especially in person, but it's something that you don't want if you're painting a smaller miniature. The sponging of the umbrella here, I thinned the paints already roughly around 2 parts paint and 1 part thinner medium. Of course, you could use water if you're a water person, but I'm a medium painter. I know, I almost acted like a 2010 YouTuber. So needless to say, I highly recommend you get some sponges for your miniature painting. Now, if you find value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now you could do masking and like use the sponge for painting the yellow lines on the signage, but I just decided to freehand the yellow lines. So I had to do a little bit of stipple layering as I painted the yellow line so that it matches the rest of the painting with the sponge. So if you don't mind masking and then sponging will create a more like seamless or more uniform look to your painting. I'm pretty happy with my yellow lines though, and now we could move on to the painting of Misty. The painting of the rest of the miniature, the rest of the clothes and the boots of Misty was via basic layering. I wasn't confident enough to use the sponge. But in hindsight, I think we could pull off really good painting just using the sponge. I'll definitely try it, especially if I use a bigger model, most likely a bust, a 3D printed bust, and then we'll just use the sponge to paint the whole miniature. I'm really happy with the sponge as a tool or as a brush for applying paints on the miniature. And I actually just asked my wife to buy me more makeup sponges. Using the sponge, in my opinion, is way better than slop chop. Like, it will give you very nice underpainting as you saw or if you watch my previous video. So I'm really excited to paint via sponge shop. But I'm really happy and I'm really impressed with the texturing and the layering using the sponge and using just regular acrylics. This part of the video though is just showing you the colors or the paints that I use in the painting of the rest of Misty. But I promise I'll paint with the sponge a lot more in future videos. Now you could see since we're painting via basic layering, you just simply paint smaller and smaller areas as the colors get lighter so that you create volume with your painting. Now you see here, I'm applying glazes like purple and pink and highlight glazes so that we really create volume in the face of Misty. Now let's do weathering on the signage. I start by painting rain marks or watermarks using amber skin. Once I'm happy with the painting of the rain marks, I then proceeded to painting some grime using midnight olive. You may mix a little amount of black or dark brown or burnt umber so that you make midnight olive darker. After applying the grime, I use a rougher sponge to apply like speckles using light gray. This will be the foundation before I apply more rush effects. Now, key to weathering regardless if you're using acrylics, enamels, or oils is that you have to create variation. So you have to use different colors, different kinds of rusts and weathering colors. More variations with your weathering will create a more realistic look, or at the very least, a more interesting finish. Now you can see in the video, I overdid the fresh rust. So I had to tone it down. So I used the sponge again with light gray and then applied rust wash so that I toned down the colors. Rust tone is a very nice wash. It's one of my favorite from the Army Painter. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course, the Army Painter for making this video possible. I hope you enjoyed this fairly long video as much as I enjoyed painting this miniature from Neko Galaxy. Also, I hope that you forgive me for acting like a 2010 YouTuber because of I'm so impressed and so happy using this sponge. As mentioned earlier, my main mistake was not to thin my paints enough. And you will want to you will want to thin your paints enough, especially if you're painting a smaller miniature. Also, I hope you enjoyed the painting of the back of the signage, the weathering. I could spend a bit more time, but it's the back. So it's a little bit of lazy painting and lazy weathering. Now, what are you waiting for? I got these sponges for around 12 pesos each. So that's about 20 cents each. So go grab yourself some sponges. Buy online, ask your wife, or ask your daughter, or even your sister to get you some makeup sponges. Lastly, a huge thanks to Neko Galaxy for sending me this beautiful miniature. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye! Now, if you like this video, do check out these other videos.